The letters, if you look at the Hebrew that I gave you, for example, the T, the original T would be, my class will know this, it was actually a cross. And we can get into the significance of that at some point. But anyway, this is where we got our T from. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Daleth, Hey. So we have A, B, C, D, E. Okay, so it's basically our alphabet came from the Hebrew through the Greek and then through maybe some Latin, and etc. Anyway, so the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet is Tav, okay, and that would have a value of 400. Now, this gematria predates Christ by about 250 years, okay? So this isn't something that was just thought up. This is something that predates Christ. Every one of these letters, in other words, has a value, a fixed value. Not only does it have a fixed value this way, but it also has an ordinal number. This is the first and this is the 22nd. So anyway, 22nd ordinal number, 21st ordinal number, but then these are the values, okay? I'm going to read you some things that are in here. Now, real quickly, Ivan Panin went through Genesis 1:1, and he also did this in the Greek, because the Greek also has a gematria. He went through the first chapter of Matthew, for example, and the patterns that are in there are unbelievable. They show wisdom, okay? Are they chance or are they not? Do you accept this or don't you? A lot of people say, well, that's nonsense. A lot of people don't. It's up to you to decide that. Let me put on my glasses so I can read this. I'm sorry. Anyway, just so you know, I'm really just starting to wear glasses, so I'm not used to doing this. It was just a couple months ago. There are 7 words in the first verse of the Bible. The 7 words in the first Bible have exactly 28 letters in the Hebrew, which is 7 times 4. Okay, I'm just going to give you a couple, and I'm going to tell you what's going on here. The gematria of the first and last letters of the first half of the verse is 42, which is 7 times 6. The gematria value of the first and last letters of the second half is 91, which is 7 times 13. The nouns have 14 letters, 7 times 2. The sum of the nouns, God, heavens, and earth, is 777, or 7 times 111. Okay, this goes on for 32 permutations of the number 7 in the first verse of the Bible. And the Bible does this all through the Bible. There are 32 permutations that he found. There may be more, but this guy, Ivan Panin, sat down in his studies at Harvard and he found 32 permutations of the number 7 in the first verse of the Bible. Now, is that chance or is that divinely inspired? That's up to you to decide. There is a guy that has an atheist site that was refuting Ivan Panin's work. And he came up with a sentence that kind of did the same thing. Had, you know, whatever, 20, 30 permutations of the number 7 in there. Okay? Where is the fallacy in that thinking? Anybody? Okay, the fallacy is that nobody knew this was in Genesis 1:1 until the 1850s. Okay? This was always there. It's been there since the first time it was written, when Moses received it at Mount Sinai. That person that made his sentence with the same pattern sat down with his little computer and he made a sentence and he figured it out. He had to sit down and spend time figuring out how to get these chances of the number 7 to come into there. Do you see what I'm saying? Is that this is something that was already there. Do you see what I'm saying? Okay, so the fallacy in his thinking is, because he had to sit down and he had to spend time, he is using wisdom and intelligence to come up with his sentence. Whereas this sentence already had it in there. Okay, and it's been there since gematria first came out 250 years before Christ. They didn't do it when Genesis 1:1 was written. And yet the pattern was already there when gematria was discovered. Okay, so yes, there is wisdom in there. Was it intentional or was it not? It couldn't have been intentional by Moses because Moses didn't know that gematria existed. So you see the fallacy in this person's thinking. I don't care. He can write whatever he wants. But to me, I think that it is more than chance. And as a matter of fact, if you take the chances, and somebody's done this, it comes out to hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of zeros that this could happen in the first sentence of the Bible. So please keep that in mind, is that it is, whether or not it was divinely inspired, it is a marvel of chance if it wasn't divinely inspired. Okay, just keep that in mind. if you ever want to, and I'm going to just real quickly talk about this, if you ever want to see I do not hold to the Bible codes, by the way, just so you know. Anybody here that has heard of the Bible codes, you can tell the future by reading the Hebrew and certain, they have programs that you can do the study. I got the program and I did the Bible codes for a while to see if it really worked, and I found some things in there that couldn't be.
This is for predicting the future?
Well, some people use it for predicting the future. Some people use it for showing patterns in the Bible. What it is you have the Hebrew scriptures, and they put them into the computer, and then you look for patterns. And you can find really interesting patterns. Is it chance or isn't it chance? I don't know. All I know is that I have found things in there that could not be. Okay? I'm not going to even talk about what they were. They cannot be, and therefore I don't mess with the Bible codes ever. But there is a site called the Other Bible Code. A guy, what's his name? Vernon Jenkins. He's a professor at the University of Glamorgan in Scotland. Okay, I became his friend, and we've emailed several times. And he has a site called the Other Bible Code, and it's based on the numbers in the Bible. And it is most interesting. It's very complicated. I can't understand it. He's a mathematician. He's a professor of mathematics, and so he understands these things. But using this, and we will get to this eventually, is if you've read the book of Leviticus, the high priest has what's called an ephod, and on the ephod are stones representing the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay? If you take these stones and you convert the names on these stones of the 12 tribes of Israel into gematria, you come out with some patterns that are absolutely astonishing. I'm going to tell you right now, it is astonishing. We can do that sometime if you want. I've got all the information here. You can look them over if you want. But I do believe that gematria is a valid science. If you don't, please don't barbecue me. Just disagree with me, okay? But I do believe it is, and I believe it's very interesting. Genesis 1:1 has patterns in there which I think are absolutely wonderful. Okay, so in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The Hebrew in there, I'm not going to write it out, but the Hebrew in there is 7 words, and if you go through it, it gives you an indication of what God was thinking when he wrote it. The word Bereshit, okay, Be is the in, and then Reshit is beginnings. You've all heard of the Jewish holiday Rosh Hashanah, okay? Rosh is the head of the year. Head, Rosh. Well, that's the same word, Reshit, okay? So you have Bereshit, in the beginning. In this, Mom and I were in Israel, and we listened to a guy named Gerald Schroeder, or actually his name is Gerard Schroeder. You remember when we listened to him? One of the smartest guys I've ever heard in my life, okay? He was a nuclear physicist in America, okay? And he helped develop our nuclear weapons. Guess what? He retired in Israel, so guess what knowledge they have? Yeah. All right? Everything that he actually lit off a couple of our nukes, right? Well, they're over there. There's no doubt that they have, even though they have never openly acknowledged a nuclear arsenal, there's no doubt that they have it. Let me deviate real quickly. I got to do this because this is so funny. Okay, listen to this. Has anybody heard about this Suxtanek? I'm mispronouncing it. The virus that showed up in the Iranian.
Yes, yes.
Okay, do you know where that came from? This is unbelievable. This is incredible. The Iranians are there and they're spinning uranium. Okay? They have these centrifuges that are spinning, making uranium. And all of a sudden, a virus comes in. And I heard about this, and it didn't mean anything. I thought, well, that's kind of neat. The viruses ruin these centrifuges. And I'm thinking, why don't they just turn off the computer and start another computer program, right? The Jewish people, the people Israel, here's what they did. They actually built the exact same centrifuges at their nuclear facility in Dimona, Israel. They had a mirror facility, and they devised a virus that would spin their centrifuges so fast that they would destroy themselves, but without sending a code to the computer to tell them that this is happening. And they tested it on this mirror thing that they had done in Israel first, and then when they said this works, they sent the virus to Iran. And these centrifuges, how do they do anything? Blessed by God, that's how they do it. I got to tell you something. So they sent this Stuxnet whatever virus to Iran, and here these centrifuges are spinning their uranium, and they just completely destroy themselves. And they can't turn it back on because they don't know which of these centrifuges have this virus and which don't. And so it was ingenious. And I just heard this recently, but isn't that neat? I mean, these guys, they spent some time figuring that one out, and then they tested it in their own centrifuges, so they just destroyed themselves, and there was no warning. So just tickles me pink. I love the way the Jewish people work. Anyway, so this guy, Gerard Schroeder, was talking to us about Genesis 1:1, and he was talking about the Jewish, what Jim mentioned, the Talmud. They have a commentary on the Bible. He was saying that just from the way the Hebrew is arranged in Genesis 1:1, they were able to tell how creation came about by great heat, which is something that we now know is correct. And this is a commentary from almost 2,000 years ago. And he said, this is what he said. I remember him sitting there, this insanely smart person. And he said, I can't imagine how they could know this. How could they have known 1,800 years ago what it was like at the creation just by looking at this? But somehow they could tell just by the structure of these words. Well, there is a Midrash, is a Hebrew. It's like a study, okay? We would say, let's have a study on the alphabet today. Well, they would do a Midrash, okay? There's a Midrash on the internet, and I didn't bring it today. I typed it all out. I followed along, and I typed it out. But it goes through Bereshit, the beginning of the Bible. And they actually take the letters, and they make like a training discipline for children. But the way they do it is they take these letters, and they show patterns that show where the Shabbat is divinely ordained, and where ideas, the word or the word light, or, is divinely ordained right in Bereshit, in the first sentence of the Bible. It's just fantastic how their minds think, because it's a pictorial alphabet. If you look at like the word womb in a woman, okay, the letters, and I'm going to get this wrong, but it's like one of the letters is like a room, one of the letters is water, one of the letters, and so it spells the room where, it's just neat. It's a pictorial alphabet. Anyway, I got that wrong, but you understand what I'm saying is that the Hebrew has a deeper meaning than what we just simply read in our language. And so they can tell things about, from Genesis 1:1. We'll go back, we'll get off that for a second. We'll go, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The first three words, in the beginning, means that there was a beginning, a start. Okay? Everybody agree with that? Now, that may sound like something that's very easy for us to understand, but people have been trying to dispel that since it was written. They've been saying, well, the universe is eternal. It has always been here. And it's hard to get around that type of thinking unless you have something to validate why you can prove that the universe had a beginning. The Bible takes it as an axiom. It says there is a beginning, and therefore there must be a beginner. But people have said, well, if the universe is eternal, we don't need to worry about a beginner. Okay? Okay, this is going to be a little complicated, and I want you to try to understand this. But here you have time. Where's my pen? Here it is. Okay, you have time. Let me erase all of this. And I'm not going to get into this type of detail after today. Okay? After this, just going to be reading the Bible and talking about it. But today, because this is the first sentence of the Bible, I want to get into some detail so you understand this. Here you have time. Okay? It's going this way. If there was no beginning, we would not be having this conversation if there was no beginning to time. Okay? The reason why is because here's Charlie right here, right? That's the day of my birth, and here's the day of my death. Now, suppose this is the beginning right here. Okay? And I come along at AD, whatever, 1964. Okay? My death is up here somewhere. Now, suppose the beginning started 10 years earlier. Okay? Right. For you. But suppose the beginning of everything started 10 years earlier, right? That means that this is now AD 1954. Okay. Now, let's go back a little farther. Suppose it was 1,000 years earlier. All right. Now it's 1064. I am moving back on the scale. if there's no beginning, I can never be born.